Srivatsan. Kritika.
Mama, கேக்குறது சொல்லுங்க. Should I call them?
Tell them to spotlight SrIrAm swAmiயோட அந்த இது வச்சிருக்காரு.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
But once it starts, once he starts, the spotlight should be on that.
So when I do Rama's birthday, we need to keep it flatness and then show this thing.
சுவாமி ரெடி ஆயிட்டேன். நான் அப்படி இருக்கேன். சௌக்கியமா?
அடியன்
அப்பா தண்டம் சமைச்சேன். சாய்க்கா
அடியன் எல்லாம் ஆச்சாரிய அனுகிரகம் உங்க
நேற்றுக்கு நன்னா இருந்தேன். கொஞ்ச நாள் கேட்டுன்னு இந்த திருமஞ்சனம் பண்ணுச்சேன். அப்புறம் ராத்திரிக்கு வீடியோ கேட்டேன் யூடியூப்ல. ஆனா அழகா கரெக்டா இந்த ஊருக்காரருக்கும் எல்லாருக்கும் புரியும்படியா எக்ஸ்பிளனேஷன் சூப்பரா இருந்தது. அடியா நாளாமா ஆர்த்தி
அடியன் ஆலாம் சுவாமி.
ஏகாந்தாய கல்யாண நிதயேர்த்தினாம் ஸ்ரீவேங்கட நிவாசாய ஸ்ரீனிவாசாய மங்களம். அடியன் டெவல் ஆரம்பிக்கலாம்.
அடியன்
தாசன்.
श्रीमान् वेंकटनाथार्यः कवितार्किकेसरी वेदान्ताचार्यवर्यो मे सन्निधत्तां सदा हृदि दिशन्तु मे देवः सदा त्वदीयाः दयातरङ्गान् रचराकटाक्षाः श्रूयतिरुसुम्भं मतं क्षरन्तीं सरस्वतीं संस्कृतकामधेनुम्. अस्मद्गुरुभ्यो नमः. श्रीमते रामानुजाय नमः. श्री लक्ष्मी हयग्रीव परब्रह्मणे नमः. श्री अंबुजवल्ली नायका समेत श्री भूवराह परब्रह्मणे नमः. श्री रंगनाथ दिव्य मणिपादकाभ्यां नमः. Again, I want to thank the temple authorities for giving us this opportunity to listen to these 2 days of presentation or introduction to our vast cosmology, the study of time with respect to how our cosmos is set up or created by Lord Sriman Narayana. I want to kind of start with a quick recap of what we had, what we discussed yesterday. Yesterday, as we look at the diagram on one of the pictures on one of the screens, right? We talked about how the nakshatras are organized, how our ancestors looked at the spacescape, how they divided the space into 12 understandable segments that made sense to us to define time, and also for many different aspects in terms of how it influences our lives. Every single creature, not just living creatures, it also embodies and influences non-living entities in this creation, are all influenced by the divine or celestial bodies out there. The stars, the planets, each one of them has an impact on our daily lives because they take part in our well-being, in terms of giving us the light or the air or water, or whatever it might be, the basic elements that we need to survive. Even a rock needs certain elements to survive as a rock. If not, it gets destroyed in terms of what it is. So that's our philosophy, that everything is taken care of by these devatas. The 33 main classifications that we mentioned yesterday, those are the ones that they are the guardians, they are the starters for our, for everything that's created. They are subordinates, and there's a hierarchy in how they take care of things. For example, the sun we talked about is a Ashtavasu, but a sun and the moon are both Ashtavasus, but the energy that they get is from Aditya. So every month there's a different Aditya that embodies them, embodies the sun. So there's much more complexity in terms of how they function with respect to the others. And we also looked at how the Rashi, the definition of the Rashi, gives us the definition of the months, which is one and the same. And we'll get to a little more today in terms of how that has a much more cyclical aspect to everyday lives also. And when we looked at the Rashis, we also talked about how we look at it through the sun. The sun is what shows us which month we are in, and how the Rashis help us conceive or see the month that we are in terms of the year. There's also a question yesterday from Sridhar Swami about Udaka Shanti. It's a very interesting one. I want to kind of take a little bit of time to kind of go through that part. Udaka Shanti is absolutely a phenomenal Vedic compilation taken from various sources, in the sense that in the Udaka Shanti, what we really do is we energize the water that's there in the pot, in a kumbham, that is subsequently going to be poured on either a person or a couple, or whatever we intend to do based on the sankalpam. For that, we kind of pray to every single element that's there, air, water, the fire, every small thing, including the nakshatras. The 27 nakshatras are covered in that Udaka Shanti mantras. And the Udaka Shanti, in the mantras for Udaka Shanti, when it comes to Nakshatra Suktam is also part of the Udaka Shanti. And one of them, the first one, actually starts with Agnirnaha Patu Kritikaha Nakshatram Deva Mindriyam, meaning Agni, there's a hierarchy. There's a hierarchy in the Devatas also. Like the first 33, the classification that we have, and the nakshatras that are created, by Daksha Prajapati. We said they are their daughters, right? The nakshatras are the daughters of Daksha Prajapati. So everything that we do when we perform, or when we do sankalpam, or when we do anything, it goes to the nakshatram. But the nakshatram adhipati, or the administrator of the nakshatram, for example, Kritika, is Agni. Agni is the administrator of Kritika. Same thing. Prajapate Rohinvethu. meaning Prajapati is the administrator or the higher up for Rohini. So any Havir Bhagam that they get, right, it's passed on from there on to Prajapati. Prajapati will take it over to give it to Indra, and Indra may give it to Sriman Narayana. So there's a share of the revenue, so to speak, in modern day language that happens when we do any ritual in terms of yajna, or even a single small sankalpam. Soma is the adipati for Mrigashirsa. Ardra has Rudra. So all of these mantras in the Nakshatra Suktam say who is the next higher level up in the hierarchy, and that's how it is. One other thing I want to kind of also point out in Nakshatra Suktam is, based on what discussion we had yesterday, based on the questions, it is very true that thousands of years ago, Kritika in its positioning, right, where it is right now today, was the start of spring, truly speaking, right? It was dependent on how the earth was tilted, or we do not know exactly how it was, but the vernal equinox was during these times. Okay, and that's how, when you look at the Nakshatra Suktam, truly speaking, it starts with Kritika. It doesn't start with Ashwini, frankly. It starts with Kritika, and that Kritika was based on the lunar calendar, and we're going to look at it, look at how the names came about. So when you look, so Ashwini and Bharani will be towards the end of the whole 27 when they talk about it. Tad Ashwina Ashwayujopa yatham is what it'll say towards the end. The name Ashwini was taken over, but Ashwayuja is actually the name of the nakshatra, and Ashwini Kumaras are the adipatis of Ashwayuja. But somehow the name has become Ashwini for now. And the last in the 27, truly speaking, in the Nakshatra Suktam is Apapapmanam Bharanirbarantu Tad Yamo Raja Bhagavan. Okay, so Yama is the adipati of Bharani, and that's how during Mahabharani, during the Mahalaya Paksham, we pray to, or people do Tarpanam for Bharani, as a since Yama is the the adipati of Pitrus and also a Devata. He takes it all. Once you do on Bharani, it covers everybody, and that's how things are organized. There's such a great hierarchy or a reason behind how things are organized, even in the Nakshatra Suktams. I just want to quickly point out that question came up, and it is wonderful that he brought it up, and thank you very much for the questions. And now we will look at the star for today. Is going to be the moon. Yesterday the stars were the stars themselves and the sun, Surya Bhagavan. Today it's going to be the moon. Chandra, or Soma, as our Shastras call it, is the second eye of Perumal. Like I said yesterday itself, Chaksho Suryo Ajayataha, Chandrama Manaso Jataha. So he's the second eye, and yet he's also, he comes from the mind. And Chandra, for a lot of things, he also embodies the mind. He has an influence of the mental health of everybody, whether we realize it or not. When yesterday, if you looked at the many pictures, they would have had the full moon with a wolf, howling. It's said that a lot of animals' behaviors are driven by the full moon. They act a little differently, or nothing bad, but still there's definitely a certain impact on the mental health on days of full moon. There's of course the tides that it influences. He's supposed to be the adipati for water, the influence of water on earth. He is completely guided by the moon's movements. Now, our scriptures never said there is one moon, there is one sun, right? The sun was a devata. He can take many different forms. There can be many different suns in many different galaxies. Same with the moon. The moon is not just the moon for Earth. There are different satellite moons that they discovered later on, that Saturn has 30 plus moons, Jupiter has 50 or whatever. So every single large planetary body needed to have a moon. The moon actually is the most underrated planetary or celestial body that anybody knows of. With today, I'm going to really surprise many of you, most likely, with the importance of moon and its effect on the Earth. The moon is not an accident. He's not there by accident. He's there as by design. He was sent over, and he's there to guide this large mass of Earth, to enable it to have, to revolve and rotate in its position correctly. So the mind of the Earth itself is actually guided by the moon. The moon, if the moon was not there, we would be all wobbly. We would wobble like crazy on our axis. We would, given the kind of speeds that we are moving at, like I said, 1,000 miles per hour for rotation on its axis, 66,000 miles of revolution. We are supposed to be completely wobbly, if at all we did that, especially with the mass. The other planets like Jupiter don't, because we don't notice it, because it's all gaseous too. So us, we are a big mass, so hence we would be extremely wobbly. And what would wobbliness do? It would change the way our weather patterns are. Every day in the morning, we would start off with, say, 80 degrees. We would probably be at 20 degrees by the time in a couple hours. That's the kind of impact the wobbliness would have, and who knows what else, right? I'm just making it up, but I would just not even know to imagine what would happen in this case. The other important thing that moon does is, the 23.5 degrees of the angle that we kind of are, right? We exactly rotate at 23.5 degrees. That 23.5 degrees, if we were to rotate on our axis, for example, you see Africa here, but Africa was going to be straight up, or on the equator. What would happen? We would have 120 degrees. The sun rays would hit the equator, the places near the equator directly. It would be straight up there, and then the weather patterns would be, I think you can focus there. So it would just be straight up, and as you go up, right, on towards the globe, the patterns would be that we would have a very uniform temperature, no doubt, 20 degrees or 30 degrees, and the poles would always have constant sunlight. They would never see night at all. So it's actually impossible to have a habitable environment if it were for the axis being at straight up with the plane of revolution. Our path of revolution around the sun would be almost impossible if we were to be straight up there. So the 23.5 degrees is been so very well designed that we have seasons. We would never have seasons but for the 23.5 degrees. You can look it up in science. You can look it up, in anywhere else. So that effect, actually, the stabilization of the Earth rotating at the 23.5 degrees, is primarily attributable to moon. The moon is not just there sucking up the gravitational pull of Earth. It really is contributing to an equal and opposite effect in terms of all the magnetic fields it creates around us. It stabilizes us, and at the same time, it's in our path, but it's not really completely dependent on us. Truly speaking, we are dependent on the moon more than the moon being dependent on us. I think I want to make that very clear, and that's what our Shastra says. The moon is such an important role that it plays. The sun and the moon are two equal parts, two equal functions for us, and everything that we do, right? Our human biological clocks are set to the movements of the moon, the 28.5 days or 29 that we say. It's all completely set with the moon. Our human biological clocks, animals, there are crabs, right, that during high tide would bury themselves on your seashores. But you bring the same crab into a lab environment, or you bring it home, it will try to bury itself when the high tide happens. So it knows exactly the time when the high tides happen. That's how much we are all in tune with the movements of the moon. Our mind is being controlled by the moon. The water, the most important aspect of where our life is all dependent on, is absolutely dependent on the moon. So the moon is an, plays such a great role only next to Surya. We can be thankful enough that we have the moon with us. And now we look at how we define what's called the tithi. The tithi is an important component. The tithi is the definition of the moon's movement around us. As it revolves around us, the exact positions with respect or relative to the sun is what we define as tithi. I'll show that to you in a minute. But before that, I want to kind of talk to a little bit about tithis. So we have one of the things that we do in our culture or scriptures is we personify every single thing. Pratama is the first day of the tithi. Dvitiya is the second day of the tithi, and we have names for each day the moon moves. It's everything is a devata. Everything is a lower category of devata. So when we do a sankalpam, again, like I said, a tithi is also benefited by us doing sankalpam because we are respecting it. Now, the popular story that my Acharyan, like our Acharyan, Srimad Trigunena Andavan has said maybe in one of his upanyasams, is Ashtami and Rohini are 2 days that many people or most people, Navami, Ashtami and Navami, are 2 tithis that most people would not do anything that's auspicious, for whatever reason, right? It's like a Sunday. Nobody does things on a Sunday, but Rohini, Ashtami were really pretty sad. Ashtami and Navami are 2 tithis that felt pretty sad that, oh, nobody does something good on us on our days. It would be, I know we took it up as a job, but still it would be nice if you could grant us something. And that's how, Krishna was born on an Ashtami and Rama was born on a Navami. So everything for us is a personification. Absolutely, tithis are entities, even though they are points in space, they are living entities that have effect on us. So each day is so important. Each day that we live is we need to be thankful to it based on where we are. Now let's look at how the tithis go around the earth. So one thing I want to kind of point out is the moon as it rotates or revolves around the earth, it does not, we are also moving. We are actually revolving around the sun. So when it moves, it kind of creates a sinusoidal wave. It moves in a serpentine fashion around the path or in which we move. So if you look at, you will be able to look at other things. If you Google around, you'll find it. Though I can't show you completely because I've stuck my moon with the earth to make it easier on us, but the path of the moon is always going to be circular. Now, the way the tithis are measured, let's start off with Amavasya. So this is how Amavasya is. Amavasya, you don't see the moon. The moon is dark. It's sitting because we are facing during the night, right? During the night, we are facing this way. We are facing this way, and the sun is behind us, and the moon is behind the earth on that side. That's why we don't see a moon. So that's what's called Amavasya. And Amavasya is defined by the fact that we are at 0 degrees. So relative to what the sun is, we are at 0 degrees. So this is 0 degrees. So each day now, as it starts to be Amavasya, right, we're going to go to become, we're going to start showing. So the movement, so again, everything revolves and rotates in an anti-clockwise direction.
SrIrAm Swami.
Adiyan.
சரியா தெரியல இந்த பிக்சரை கொஞ்சம் மூவ் பண்ணணும்.
Okay. Right now?
இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் உங்களுடைய towards you move பண்ணணும்.
Towards me. Like that?
To the அந்த picture left.
Okay.
The picture, if you are facing the picture to the right, if you are facing the picture to the right of the picture.
So you're looking at, you're talking about the picture, Swami?
Correct.
So yeah, we'll try. So
No, if you are facing the picture, the whole thing has to be moved to the right. The whole board are there.
yeah.
Okay, just to the right. Just pull it towards. Yeah, I mean some more. No,
Okay, I think it's probably the camera that's play here.
Oh, okay. Seri, கொஞ்சம் தெரியல நானும். Right. தன்யவாதம். இப்ப பரவாயில்ல. Sorry.
So that's how the moon kind of moves. So you start to there's the we were completely dark, and as we move at day 1, right? The day 1 is our pratama, day 2 is dvitiya, and then tritiya, and then when we come here, you see that's where the ashtami. That's the half part of it. So you're going to the ashtami when we see some parts of the moon, but we're still half of it. We see half of the moon brighter because of the sun, and half dark. So as we come around completely, we're going to be in Paurnami. So that's how the moon, we define what's called the moon's movements. The moon's movements happen, and this is how it happens now with respect to where we are in today's world, right? We were at where are we? All the way here. Correct. So if you wanted to imagine today's placement, truly speaking, we are a Pratama of, we are an Ipasi, Tula Masa, right? Yesterday we talked about it, that we are facing opposite. Our solar months are exactly opposite of where we would be. But our Chandramana months, right? The Chandramana months are defined by where the moon is with respect to its Paurnami. So yesterday was Paurnami, and that Paurnami was on Ashwini Nakshatra. So Ashwini Nakshatra, like I just read out from the Nakshatra Suktam, Ashwayuja. The month Ashwayuja is derived from the fact that we are in Ashwini Nakshatra. So that's the reason why we have Ashwini as the star. And today with Pratama, we've already moved to Bharani. So we are in Pratama. We're going to be a little bit eaten away, but we're going to still see the full moon for like 2 days. Dvitiya is when you're going to start seeing it, but by then we will have moved to Kritika. I have to give you a little bit of a story in terms of how our itihasas deal with the waning and the waxing that we call of the moon. It was supposed to, if you imagine in the creation of how the creations were taking place, Chandra was supposed to stabilize the earth, provide the stability. And when he was doing this, when he was trying to provide the stability, he was not able to. He was actually, what happened was, oh yeah, that's going to come when we talk about nakshatra. So we'll get to that in a little bit. So this is how the full moons and the new moons work in terms of but one thing you may be wondering, right? When we have Paurnami right here, we are really not having eclipses. The other next item that we want to cover is the eclipse. So if we're all aligned in the same line, we don't have eclipses every fortnight. And the reason for this is the moon actually revolves around the earth at an angle about 5 degrees. It just rotates at an angle about 5 degrees, at 5 degrees, and then it just doesn't meet. And that's the reason why we don't have eclipses every 15 to 20 days. But the eclipses do happen because of two devatas again, or asuras that turn to be devatas. That's the Rahu and the Ketu that we got to cover. And that's the Grahanam. So for that, we got to look at what was happening during the time when the churning of the ocean was taking place. So when the churning of the ocean took place, where the devatas were pining to get amritam because they needed continuity. So devatas, in order to create or maintain an order of the world with everything that's the celestial bodies moving, they needed a longer span of functions, like just like we have senators that are 6 years duration, congressmen that are 2 years, right? Senators are there for 6 years because they can provide some continuity into the administration. Similarly, the devatas wanted the longer lifespan to get their act together, and hence the reason for getting amritam. So the amritam churning was going on, and there emerges Dhanvantari Bhagavan with amritam in his hand. And then the Perumal, of course, is unbiased, right? When he comes up with the amritam, the asuras come and grab it. They they take it away from him. But then he lets that happen also. He's not going to stop it. The devatas go back to him and plead to save them again. And then that's when he takes the Mohini avataram. So when he takes the Mohini avataram, now he's trying to placate and then distribute the amritam. During this phase, there's one person called Swarbhanu. Swarbhanu is a asura, but that asura right now, he stands in the line of the devatas, and he gets the amritam. Again, Perumal does not distinguish or doesn't have a bias for not giving it. Then he takes the amritam. He's already drank it, but he's still not completely ingested it. At that time, Chandra and Surya together are supposed to have pointed out that this guy is an asura. He's not supposed to get it. Again, when Perumal is told of something that's wrong, he has to take action. Shatvata Samhita in Pancharatra clearly says, he took another avataram at that time. During the Mohini avataram, he takes yet another avataram, which is called Rahu Jit. So Rahu Jit is the third avataram he takes in the span of very short time. And then that's the avataram that kills or tries to kill Rahu, the Swarbhanu. So he becomes two in parts, which is the top portion is Rahu, the bottom portion becomes Ketu of that personality. And that, since he's had the amritam, he has to be given a function in the whole cosmos, in the creation. So they plead for something, and that's when they get the function of blocking light. They say, hey, I want to do something, but you know what? Whatever the sun and the moon did, were not right. They ratted me out. I need to block them for, even if it's a small time, I will. But one would wonder, why would we personify or consider them as planets? They really are not planets. They are points in space. We have names for intersections of the roads, right? Why not intersections in space? And that's what they are. They're simply points in space, but yet they have a personification. Again, Rahu. So let's come to Rahu. For Rahu to have an action on a Grahanam day, even though they are revolving around the sun, around the earth, the point at which it meets, right? The sun, the earth, and the moon meet is what is called Rahu. Rahu's like Surya Grahanam always happens on a Amavasya, because this is where the moon is going to be. Okay, so this is where Rahu is always on the north, Ketu is always on the south. So those are the 2 points around us that we need to keep in mind, and they're always moving with us, but they're the only 2 points that move in the clockwise direction, actually. And they change about 18 months. This is when they keep moving. It takes them 18 months to move around the sun, but they are the points in space, and yet we personify them, and they are an important component for us because they block the sunlight. Like we said yesterday, light is one of the most important aspects of our lives. And even a blockage of 5 minutes or a few minutes is important, and it's considered a phenomena that we need to respect. And then that time factor needs to be considered. One may also wonder why a moon, or such a small body, is able to block the entire sun. And the reason for that is the moon actually is 400 times smaller than what a sun is. But the distance from where we are to the sun, it's also 400 times nearer to us than it is to the sun. And hence, when we place the moon in front of the sun, it almost seems like we are blocking such a huge part of the light sun. And that's how we are able to achieve the grahana. So this is the story behind Surya Grahanam. Likewise, when we have a Paurnami is when Chandra Grahanam happens. Chandra Grahanam happens always on a Paurnami. It because you have to have it lined up. Of course, it may be a slightly a Pratama or whatever, but in general, the sun, the moon is on the other side of the earth for that phenomenon to happen. So when that happens, right, the sunlight falls on the earth, but the earth is blocking, the shadow falls on the moon, and hence we can't see the moon even on a full moon day. And that is the Ketu point. The Ketu point is defined by the fact that the moon is right there. So for us, for in our Shastras, for a grahanam to be completely accepted, it has to be full grahanam, in the sense that all of the light needs to be blocked. So if there's a penumbral and all of that characteristics where it's slightly lower, slightly higher, partial eclipse, those are not counted, because we need to see the full moksham, right? The light needs to be blocked, and the body needs to emerge out of the light. There's got to be moksham for the planetary system, and hence either we want to perform tarpanam or whatever is not done for partial eclipses, but for full eclipse, total full lunar eclipse, or a Chandra Grahanam or a Surya Grahanam, we are supposed to perform a propitiation for for our ancestors. And I'll get to why we use the moon for that part later in this talk introduction. So we saw the angle on how the titis are measured. The titis, of course, are measured by the angular distances. When it's a Paurnami, it's full 180 degrees. So that's how the Paurnami starts, and the angular distance is this way. So again, the same thing that we talked about when we do a measure, the rashis, the movement of the rashis. If you look at the way it is, right, the moon's angular distance with the sun and the moon as a whole, the earth is just a point. So when we define a titi that happens at 12 o'clock, when we start to move, or when we say Dvitiya ends at 12 p.m., it's 10:30 p.m. that it ends in India. So Indian time, 10:30 is at the night time of today is when Dvitiya ends for India, when US time ends Titi of Dvitiya at 12 noon for us. So we are just a point in the space as far as the earth is concerned. So the movement of the Titi, or the changes in the Titi, are the same for all points, depending on your time zones. You can adjust, wherever you are. So that's the calculation between the titis. When we see in the calendars, wherever we are, we have to adjust for that fact. Now let's talk about nakshatram. So nakshatrams also, the good part for us is everything that we measured as far as time is concerned, either the titi or the nakshatram, was all relative to these two bodies in space, Chandra and Surya. The movements of these two is what we measured in terms of where we were for a given point in time. So nakshatram was pretty much the same thing. We didn't take into consideration where we were. but the moon. Now, like I said earlier, yesterday we were at Ashwini Nakshatram. That also is due to the fact that we're looking at the moon. So this is not a scale. One thing you need to kind of keep in mind is these nakshatrams that you see around are for our own purpose, to see, to get to conceptualize. These are so far away from each other that the distance between the Earth and the moon, whatever, is not going to make any difference at all. The moon is also moving, revolving around us. It completes a circle. When during that circular movement, it visits Ashwini. Yesterday it was in Ashwini, and when it moves into Bharani tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow it's going to move, or tomorrow it's going to move into Kritika. So the movement of the Chandra around us is what defines a nakshatram for us. The angular distance, or because there are 27 nakshatras, 360 degrees, the moon's movement of 13 degrees and 20 minutes is what is calculated as the movement between the nakshatras. The angular distance between Ashwini and Bharani are 13 degrees and 20 minutes. That's how they calculate. The time taken for it to move is how it's calculated. Again, the moon, like we said earlier, right? It's complex in terms of how it manages to rotate around us, revolve around us, and also catch up with us as we are moving at the 66,000 miles per hour. So the time taken for it to move between the nakshatras, between the tithis, absolutely is phenomenal, in the sense that it's got to move faster sometimes, it's got to move slower sometimes, because it gets nearer us, it gets closer to the sun sometimes. So when you get closer to the sun, during the winter season, actually, the Krishna Paksha, when we go to Krishna Paksha, the time taken for each tithi to complete can be much faster, because the gravitational pull, as we get nearer a larger object like the sun, even though it may be like 10 million miles or whatever, right? As a difference, the pull makes it go faster. But again, we are rotating on a different other forces that makes it go on the opposite direction. The push pull, or the whole physical aspect of it is phenomenal in terms of what impact it has for our tithis to function. So the time it takes for a dvitiya for one day is different from the dvitiya of the next tritiya. So people may be confused as to why does it end on 12:55 on one day, and next day it's only at 7 o'clock in the morning. It's all because of the gravitational aspects of where we are with respect to the sun. It's pretty complex, and it's actually phenomenal that our ancestors have been able to keep track, keep watch of the movements, and have all these calculations put in what is called, simply known as Panchangam. So we generally take note of the narigas that have passed and stuff like that, and we sometimes do tend to complain. But if you look at the kind of observation that has gone on in terms of the speeds, the placement of the planets, it's absolutely phenomenal. One little story to kind of relate as far as the nakshatrams go. The Chandra is considered to be the husband of. We have a lot of allegorical stories in our Itihasas Puranas to help understand a lot of things better around us. Now, what we do is, there are 27 nakshatras that we saw yesterday, right? They're all daughters of Daksha Prajapati. So Daksha Prajapati is supposed to have given Chandra in charge of these 27 women who are embodiments of planetary systems, and he's supposed to have gone around them. He's supposed to be going around them. So during the creation aspects of it, he couldn't, in the sense that when Chandra, the Devata who put this planetary system or celestial body around it, the gravitational pull, and I think he was struggling to get the moon moving. So he was stuck at Rohini. Truly speaking, he was stuck at Rohini at some point in time. And Daksha Prajapati said, "Oh, you're not visiting or giving due respect to the other 26 people that you have married. You're stuck at Rohini. You got to get this moving. I'm going to curse you. You're just going to be fading away. You just don't know to do your job." And then Chandra, the Devata, truly then now goes to Rudra to ask for help. He helps him and then says, "Hey, you know what? I have a plan. I'll make sure that you respect whatever your father-in-law said, that you're going to fade away. But also we'll make sure that you get your job done." And then he helps him get the movement. Rudra, right? Rudra, like we said yesterday, also is the force behind things. So he gets the things moving for the moon, puts him in the right orbit, and make sure that he can revolve around the earth, going to all the 27 nakshatras. And hence, as a mark of respect, he has Chandra on his jata. That's why he's called Chandrasekhara. So he's called Chandrasekhara because of that, in respect to this phenomena that happens. So that's how the moon then starts to move to all the nakshatras. Now we're going to see how in Chandramana, in the months, right? We talked about Ashwini as being the month here, Ashwayuja. Now when we go to the next month, right, in between somewhere here, it's going to become Amavasya. When we go to the when we go right there, it's going to be Amavasya. And on the 14th, right, Chaturdasi is when we're going to Ashwayuja. Chaturdasi is what is Deepavali for us. So right after Deepavali, is Amavasya, right? That's where we are going to be. Another 15 days past that, we are going to be coming down right there, actually. And if you come down there on the Paurnami, what are you going to see? You're going to see Kritika. So what's the month called? Kartika Masam, right? Kartika. So our months, actually the Chandramana months with Kritika, Kartigai. But again, if you look at Sauramana, right, we are already going to be moving. Where did we move? We moved to Vrishchika. So like we said yesterday, right, we got to look at the opposite side, what the sun is showing us. The sun is showing us Vrishchika. But Tamil names, right? We derived it from what we saw from what was Chandramana, and we said Kartigai. We simply said Kartigai. But truly speaking, we have an offset of about 15 days, but yet Kritika is what defines to us. And let's keep moving. And I'm going to just go only on the Paurnami days, and I'm going to show you that Mrigashira Masa. So when we say Mrigashira, Margari, right? Margari is the month. So the full moon in December, when it is full moon, it's going to be Mrigashira. 1 or 2 days, there may be 1 or 2 days, and we'll talk a little bit about how that happens. So that's how Mrigashira Masa happens. When we come to Makara, right, when we are in Makara Masam, Tai, right after Dhanur Masam, we're going to be at Pushya. Pushya actually, or Taishya, it used to be called Taishya. If you look at all the Vedic mantras, you will see Taishya as being called out. That actually is Pushya Masa, and it's also called Pushya. And that's the reason why we have the name as Tai Masa, because of Taishya or Pushya. And then when the next month we go to Maka. Maka is Magha Masa. Magha Masa is because of Maka. And as we move down, it's going to be Phalguni. Phalguni is the month. It can be either Uttara Phalguni or Purva Phalguni. And that's how the month derives its name. And that's a Masa for Meena. The Meena Masa that we have, Panguni, is based on the fact that the full moon is going to be on Uttara Phalguni or Purva Phalguni. And again, when we come back all the way down, where are we going to be? Samvatsaradi. Yes, that's where we're gonna cross Samvatsaradi. When we're gonna cross Samvatsaradi, we're gonna go to Chitra Masam actually, right? That's where we're gonna go. We are Chitra. Yeah, I can. Yeah. So if you look at Chitra right here, that's where Chaitra Masam. Chaitra Masam starts, and when we are through the sun, we're gonna look at Chitra. So when we look at the earth is going to be facing, and the earth and the moon are going to be facing the nakshatrams right behind us during the night time. Whatever we see in the Paurnami day is what defines our months as far as Chandramana. And what the sun is going to show us on the opposite side, where we are as a Rashi, is what defines our Sauramana months. Both these are actually inseparable. Frankly speaking, as per our Vedic culture, we should really not separate them, and we need to give them equal importance. Just because of the fact that we've followed the Gregorian calendar and we just don't have the patience to understand this wonderful system, we have just given up on it and we just follow, we are Sauramana, this is Tamil calendar and this is Telugu calendar. We just try to make a distinction between these two, while they really are not. Both are absolutely important. Samvatsara is as important. Samvatsara, truly speaking, is defined only based on lunar, solar calendar. Whatever the sun shows is what is Samvatsara. If you were to look at only moon, it is really Anuvatsara, because it's Amavasya that's defining your month. And again, the one other thing I want to kind of point out quickly is there are some parts of India that considered Amavasya as being the first of the month. The month actually starts on the Amavasya. The Paurnami of that month, the month that the name that it takes is what they define as the month's name. But then the Amavasya day is the star of the month for, say, Ashvija. There are people that consider the Paurnami as the start of the month. So there are Amanta calendar and there's the Paurnamanta calendar also, just based on the moon's movement. Again, right? If you just take the moon as being the celestial body that's telling us about the time, we just are looking at it with one eye. We just don't have the rest of the part. This is Kala Purusha. The Kala Purusha that embodies this thing is Sriman Narayana, which goes into this whole makeup. We would just be left with just one eye if we were not taking the fact that we are looking at Sauramana, which is the second eye, and all the other angas that we talked about, right? The nakshatras, the titis, and everything makes up what is Kala Purusha. And I mean, look at it, right? It's all so cyclical in nature. Swami Vedanta Desikan, the Mangalam for him in Saptaratna Malika says Bhadrapada Masa, Vishnu Vimala Vrikshe. So there is a mention of Bhadrapada Masa even in our Sanskritam literature, where we take into consideration the Chandramana Masams as much as the Sauramana Masams. So, and there is a question about how festivals are different, right? Yes, in the sense that yesterday we talked about how our New Year or Pongal usually falls on the January 14th or the April the 15th, because it's more in tune. The Sauramana months are more in tune with the solar calendar, and with the Gregorian calendar, and the Sauramana months are in tune pretty much with 364 days. However, when you look at the moon is slightly behind. It's 29.5 days, but if you multiply it by 12, it fills in only 354 days. So we get a deficit of about 10 to 12 days every year, and hence we fall short of it. But most of our major celebrations, for example, Mahalaya Paksham is on in Bhadrapada Masam, Krishna Paksham. It's not based on Sauramana. Upakarma, for example, when we say Upakarma, we say Avaniya Vittam, which is again a misnomer. It's actually Shravana Masa of Chandramana Paurnami. Shravana Paurnami is when Yajurveda Upakarma is. It is not. So it so happens that, truly speaking, when I'll show it to you. Where is Avani? Here's Avani. So we're going to be near. So Avani, we're going to be right opposite, right? We're going to be right here. Okay, this is how we're going to be. When we say Avani, we're going to be right there as a Sauramana month, but then we're going to be near Dhanishta. Dhanishta is actually Ketai, Avittam, sorry. Dhanishta is the Avittam nakshatram. So Avani is more than likely the solar month that we will be celebrating in. But truly speaking, when you look at Ahnikas and everything else that says, it is Shravana Masa, Paurnami, Rig Upakarma is on Shravana Masa, Shravana Nakshatra. Okay, and that's how the calendars are defined. Ramanavami is typically done on Chaitra Masa, Navami day. Punarvasu Nakshatram, if it's there, it's there, but still it's Navami is given the most importance. Same thing with Narsimha Jayanti. Narsimha Jayanti is Vaishaka Masa, Shukla Chaturdasi, not even Swati, not even anything else. So Perumal's birth is largely based on Tithis also in conjunction with Nakshatra. But we humans usually use only Nakshatram. We will again talk about that part. Let's get to a little bit of understanding on the loss of these 10 days, how we had this Adhika Masa this year. Like I said, like the 354 days is what it comes up to be. We lose about 10 days every year. So every 2.5 years, we got to make up for the 30 days, and the 30 days needs to be inserted someplace. So the way they do the insertion is Chandramana Masam this year has 13 months as opposed to 12. So when we put in an Adhika Masa, when they insert Adhika Masa, that Masa really doesn't have a Sankramana. Wherever the 30 days are inserted, they look for a nice place to insert it. This time it happened to be Ashwayuja. Ashwayuja was the month right here that had the Adhika Masa. So usually, right, Navaratri, the Sharad Navaratri that we had comes in Ashwayuja, Shukla, Shukla, Pratama. Right after Mahalaya Paksham, Bhadrapada Masa, Ashwayuja would start. This time, then Adhika Masa was inserted in the calendar. And Adhika Masa, when it is inserted in the calendar, which does not have Shankaramana, is not good enough for festivals to be performed. Hence, we did not perform our Navaratri during that time. We waited a month later when the Nija Ashwayuja happened. So even Deepavali, right? Deepavali are supposed to be last month, but it did not happen because of the Adhika Ashwayuja that was inserted to make up for the 365 days. And when you look at this year, you're going to always find Amavasya or Sankaramana coming very close to each other, almost the same day or the next day, 1 or 2 days, because of the 13 months. Now we are in tune with the 30-day calendar for this year. And then it'll start to fall behind because of the 29.5 days. And we're not far off. It's 30.4 or 30.5 that Sauramana has, making up for the 365 days. Again, that's how the Adhika Masa happens. And again, I want to kind of point out that there are some Adhika Masams that will be inserted where there'll be 2 Sankarmanams. That's also called Kshaya Masam. Even that is not counted, but that's also possible. Just want to kind of throw it out there, just so that you're more confused than what you are, perhaps. Sorry for doing that. Now coming to the importance of how Tithis are so important for us. We use it for Shraddham a lot, right? When we say Shraddham, we remember based on the Tithi of a particular person that's passed away, Abdika Shraddham or any of the Shraddhams. The reason behind that is Chandra is the Ashtavasu. Chandra, when we have Chandra and Surya or both Ashtavasus, and when we talk about Pitrus, Ashtavasus, the next higher up is Ekadasha Rudras, and the next higher ups are the Adityas. So the Pitrus, the immediate Pitru departed, takes the place of Ashtavasu, your grandfather takes the place of Ekadasha Rudras are represented by your grandfather. Your great grandfather are represented by the Adityas. So when you always say three talamarais, right? When you do any shraddha, when you invoke those three talamarais, these three people, right? The Ashtavasus, Ekadasha Rudras, and Adityas take place of your three Pitrus, and they come together. And now, since you are going to be invoking, both sun and the moon, Ashtavasus, who are part of the Ashtavasus, and you are remembering the moon is the closest ancestor, right? And the point in space that he is in, which is the Tithi, not the nakshatra. His own movement is what we are tracking for the Tithi, and he takes the place of the ancestor, is why we use his positioning for Tithis, for remembering your immediate ancestors passing away. And the Shraddham that you do for the Abdikam is called Parvana Shraddham, just because of that reason. Parvana is the placing of the moon, and also the coming together of the sun and the moon. Parvana, because they are both Ashtavasus, they come together, and that's the reason why we call Parvana Shraddham, because the homam that's done is based on the invitation of the Pitrus to take that position. Now, yeah, we pretty much covered that. Now I want to kind of cover the birth of Rama real quickly. So we looked at the spacescape for measuring time. It is also for day-to-day activities. We have this concept of wonderful, relation to everything that's around us in terms of the planetary bodies that give us the time and the date and everything else. We want to see how thousands of years ago, everybody realizes that Ramayana is such an old itihasa that we have. It keeps coming back. Like we said, it's an ayanam, because of the ra there. So now we'll take a look at how Maharshi Valmiki, he actually writes in his when describing the birth of Rama, Tato yagne samapte tu rutunam shat samatyuhu, meaning after the Putra Kameshti Yagna was samapte, the rutus were shut. There were 6 rutus even back then, like thousands of years ago. And tatascha dwadashe mase chaitre navamike tito. So Rama was born after 12 months. There's a long story behind that too. There's exactly a good story on why it took 12 months for Rama to be in his mother's womb. But the Mase was Chaitra Masa. Chaitre Navamike Tito. So Navami, like I said, right? Navami got the exalted position of hosting Rama for his birth. Nakshatre Aditi Daivatye Swacha Samasteshu Panchashu. Nakshatra was Aditi Daivata, was the Adipati. Now I read out the Nakshatra Suktam earlier, where it said Punarno Aditya Punarno Daityescha, meaning the Adipati of Punarvasu is Aditi. Now, if you did not know Nakshatra Suktam in the Vedas, you would not be able to make the connection in Ramayanam, where it says Nakshatre Aditi Daivatye Swacha, meaning it really is referring to Punarvasu as being the nakshatram that Rama was born, and Griheshu Karkate Lagne Vakpata Viduna Shaha. So it also mentions about the Karkata Lagna that he was born, and I'll get to that part also because it's important to kind of know in terms of time. Prodhamane Jagannatham Sarvaloka Namaskaram. So everybody was very happy that Sri Rama was born. And we'll take a quick peek at how these very same planetary positions or the stars help us determine Rama's birth from thousands of years ago. So the planet Sun was supposed to be in Mesha. So when we talk about Mesha, it's right there. Okay. So sorry, Sun. I don't have to play sun. So sun is in Mesha, meaning the Sauramana Masa is Mesha. When we celebrate Ramanavami in the temples, that says Mesha Masam, Chitra Masam's Punarvasu, we are not far off actually, because it says the sun was in Mesha Masam. The sun was in Mesha Masam, Mars was in Makara Masam. The Mangalam was in Makara. Where's Makara now? Yeah, that's in Makara. So Mars was in Makara, pretty close to Earth. Okay, and Guru in Karka. Where's Karka? Karkata, right? So Guru is far off, and he's in Karkata, and Venus is in Meena. Where is Meena Masam? Right. Okay, Venus. Oh, there's Saturn. So Venus is closer than the Earth. He was there, and Saturn was in Shani. Shani is in Tula. Shani is in Tula. Okay. Shani is in Tula. So this is how, if you look at the planetary positions, they tell you that the sun was in Meena in Mesham. Sorry, the moon was in Navami, Shukla Navami, actually, and the no, he was actually pointing to Karkata, which means he was in Purvashara Nakshatra, Punarvasu. So the moon was pointing to Karkata. Okay, he was in Shukla Navami day. Okay, he was in Shukla Navami day, but pointing to Punarvasu right there. So what they also say is moon was in Karkata, meaning he was pointing to Punarvasu. Jupiter, Guru, was also in Karkata. But what you see right here is Punarvasu fourth padam. He was not, even though it says Aditya's, in the Adipati Nakshatram, Punarvasu, he is not in Mithuna Rashi, or the moon was not in Mithuna Rashi. But Punarvasu, like we said yesterday, right? There's a division of the pada. So we know that Rama was born in the fourth pada of Punarvasu. That's how accurate our ancestors have been in trying to define time. In the same way, Bharata was supposed to have been born in Pushya Nakshatra, which is right next to it because it's the next day. And Lakshmana and Kshatrugna were both supposed to have born in Ashlesha Nakshatra. So they were born in 3 consecutive times. Rama was born in the 4th pada of Punarvasu. Right after, in Pushya Nakshatra, was born Bharata. Shatrugna and Lakshmana, the twins, were born in Ashlesha Nakshatra. So it's clearly mentioned in Ramayana as to how they were born. And Shatrugna was born, for example, Rama was born in Karkata Lagna. So now let's use, again, I want to point out that even in a given day, right, the earth is rotating. When it is rotating, we are still looking at all the rashis high above us. It's all there. So we still, the 24 hours that we have is divided into 2-hour segments because of the 12 rashis that we have, and those are allocated from for example, if we are in Mesha Masam, our start of the day, the Lagna, is called Mesha Lagna at the start of the day. On the first day of the month, Mesha Lagna is what is given, and then from there it starts to go every 2 hours. So when you go to Karkata, right, from the 4 hours, 6 hours, and 6.5, right, and Punarvasu this padam. So almost 6 hours after the sunrise was when Rama was born, around noon time. That's why when you see Ramanavami celebrated, Ramanavami is usually celebrated in the afternoon, mid-noon, right? Because he was born in Karkata Lagna. And that's how we define time of somebody's birth, and that goes into your Jatakam, and that's how a Jatakam is made for determining the time in which someone was born. This is used for everyday practical purposes. We do not want to cover, or we don't want to cover the predictive astrology, because predictive astrology that we had is basically data science, pretty much. Right now, people gave up on predictive astrology and largely dealt with the fact that it's they can use this planetary positions of the various planets to determine your astrology, and astrology's got a not so great of a connotation in today's world, just because previously, remember, time is in cycles. We go in cycles. So they always noted what happened at a certain point in time, thousands of years ago. They had full data collected up, and they used that data to determine what was going to happen. When that same positioning happens a few days later or a few months later, we have kind of lost that part. And that's the reason why astrology is not so effective, but it can always come back, because it's pure data science, nothing but data mining that we have today. If you're able to get back that, you can be very good at predicting what's going to be the future for us. With the notion that, so and they also knew about the planets. If you look at the planets, right, the planetary positions that we had, Saturn, when you have Saturn, they call Saturn Manda Buddhi or Manda or Sthira. For example, we call Saturday as Sthira Vasaraha, because it moves at 30 years. It takes 30 years for it to revolve around us, the sun. So it's a very slow moving planet. It's dragged down by the numerous moons that it has. It of course stabilizes it. The Jupiter takes 12 years, and the 5 times that it goes around comes up to 60 years. And that's why we celebrate Shashti of the Purti also for many people, because during that, because Jupiter is Brihaspati, and the Nitya karmas that we do go up to Jupiter. And a cycle of 5 to him is a propitiation for why we celebrate Shashti of the Purti for many people. So there's a lot of connotations in terms of how the planets play a very important role in our lives. There's a deep understanding of all the planetary bodies around us and how it impacts our lives, how it impacts the Kala Purusha that created the whole thing, the whole world around us. With the with Smaranam to Sri Rama's feet, Ranganatha Dvina Padikabhyam Namaha, and Sri Rama. We looked at Rama's birth and how it was. It's a new beginning for us in the learning. I'd like to conclude my introduction with prayers and Mangala Shashanams at all the people that are listening, and also at my acharyas and Bhagavan's feet. Kavitarka Simha Kalyana Gunashana Shrimate Venkateshaya Vedanta Guruve Namaha. Open to any questions though.
Adiyan Swami, it was very informative. So one basic question, Swami. So when we talk about horoscope and everything, there are 2 things, right? So one is Vakya Panchangam. They say the other is Tirukanita Panchangam, I think. So Vakya Panchangam is basically saying that according to these planetary positions, this is what has happened and this will happen. But yesterday we were also saying that with the slight change in the position, the tilt and everything, we keep recalibrating things, right? So in that case, will Vakya Panchangam still hold good because we are not taking into account all these changes, right?
So there are 2 things I want to clarify. Vakya Panchangam only talks about the time travel, the time taken for the movements of either the earth or the moon, and even that has a certain amount of variance. It doesn't completely cut you off from it. And they have also refined things. The other one that you said, right? Ganita Panchangam. Ganita meaning you recalibrate, recalculate stuff. So there's other Surya Siddhanta Panchangam, which looks at it in a different way. There's the variations are somewhat minor, truly speaking. Even though it's there, even the Vakya Panchangam is what SrIrAm temple uses, and our own calendars use. Frankly speaking, they offer, even though the variations may seem like they're much, but in the grand scheme of things, they're not as much. So the Vedic Panchangams do a pretty good job at adjusting themselves in terms of the time durations.
Again, Swami. One more question. So, whatever we talked about yesterday and the Sauramana thing, is it all with respect to the northern hemisphere greatly?
Largely, what we said in terms of how the seasons work and all that is northern hemisphere. But the same is good. But the month doesn't change, right? You're going to be in Meshmasam no matter what. But how you're going to feel is going to be different. Like we also said yesterday, right? The season started in Kartika, right? Months before. So it's possible that 10,000 years ago, the northern hemisphere in March felt like southern hemisphere, right? Because of the tilt, the variations in tilt. So it's a possibility, but what it is right now is how the definitions are laid out.
Okay. Okay. Then use Miss one.
SrIrAm Swami, I missed yesterday's lecture. I really missed. There's so much of packed information, enormous amount of knowledge, all in our Vedas, and you have really brought out the concepts in a fashion that's, that makes sense, and where we can connect ourselves. So it's extremely good. I really think that you should probably consider giving this lecture to large number of people at different places, because virtually everybody in our community needs to have this knowledge, and we lack that knowledge. So I'm going to appeal to you that I'm going to come to you for more and more sessions for different audience, because this knowledge we need to have this knowledge. So dhanyavadaha for all the effort and explaining it so clearly. It was wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
My bhagyam, and really, it's absolutely humbling to know that our ancestors have so much going on in the study of the world around them, and that we are only focused on the Gregorian calendar on our day-to-day, and we think our Panchangam is only for people with a totally different category. So just want to kind of bring it back into the mainstream. Really wish our next generation takes hold of this and really realizes the planets around them, the cosmos around them, and feels the connection to it strongly. Again, with all the blessings from all the Bhagavatas, that's possible.
So just an additional note, in today's session, we have a couple of students from our Sanskrit Bharati class, and we have started reading Panchangam in every class in Herndon Kendram. So everybody knows our Sampradayam and Chandramana, Sauramana, Ritu, Nakshatram, Tithi, and all that. So they are getting into that now. So whatever you're going to explain to them in future will be definitely very valuable.
So there's a question in the chat. Why and how does different Indian states celebrate New Year, though we follow Vedic astrology? The Vedic astronomy part of it, actually, when we take in the way the calendars are laid out, there's a pattern to it. Actually, there's a clear pattern. Most people, like Chaitra Masam, right? If most people celebrate the Ugadi starting with Chaitra Masam, which is also the Samvatsaram. When it's about a 15 days lag with the Sauramana, but Chandramana is very close up there. So that's where the Ugadi starts for Chaitra Masam. And when you look at people like Punjab, right, that they celebrate pretty close to Meshamasam here. But you look at these stars that's aligned. It's can you go closer? It's Vishaka, right? What do people in Punjab call themselves for their New Year? It's Baisakhi. Baisakhi is nothing but Vishaka. So it's closer to Baishakhi for them, and the Paurnami that happens very close to them, they go with Purnamanta. And so Baisakhi, in here, I think Bengal also does Baisakhi. So that's how they get closer. Of course, in Gujarat, for example, they celebrate right opposite, nothing different. We celebrate in the vernal equinox, right? And we said previously you choose to be the exact opposite, Kartika Masam. So right now when we have the Deepavali, right after Deepavali, they're going to start their New Year. Their New Year begins on the day after the Amavasya, right? Exactly opposite, but pretty much based on vernal equinox or the autumnal equinox. Nothing too different. Nobody has their starting on January 14th, for example, and things of that sort. So they're pretty close. There are some variations, but still pretty much within the lines of what our Sampradayam allows them to do. Truly, it's a very open, there's a code of conduct, there's a fence, but within the fence, there's a lot of leeway for people to change things. That's how our Sampradayam is.
Namaskaram. I have a doubt.
Please.
Actually, as Vittal Mogadaya told, I'm a student of him. We are just started learning the calendar. But to visualize, I just understood that what is the Adhika Masa which you told and Nija Masa of that Ashvayuja month. So actually we have 12 and this 13 is getting inserted. And now this 13th month starts from the Nija Ashvayuja month is starting from this October mid to November, actually speaking. So now when you take the lunar calendar, this Kartika month comes in. So this time we call it as a Nija Ashvayuja month, or it is termed as Kartika.
No. So there's only one month that got inserted. So the Ashvayuja that came right after Mahalaya Paksham, right, is the Ashvayuja. It was just the Ashvayuja. Now the month that we are having currently is called Nija Ashvayuja. We started our Navaratri when that month started. It's going to end right after Deepavali. So the Nija Ashvayuja is going to end after that. Right after that, your Kartika Masa is going to start. Okay. Next year, you're not going to have this. Next year, we're going to have just the normal ones. There's not going to be an Adhika Masa.
Oh, okay. So then today's calendar, I mean, if I'm reading Panchangam for today, then today I'll be reading as Nija Ashvayuja month or Kartika month.
Ashvayuja.
Okay.
Yes.
Dhanyavad.
Yeah, we are going to be in Ashvayuja until we complete Deepavali.
Okay.
Adiyan Swami. One more question.
Yeah.
So, according to our Sampradaya, say Brahma or Indra, all those are post, and it keeps happening, right? So, different personas take that position. It's a persona basically, right? So, when we talk about this 11 Rudras. And all these Ashtavasus and everything. So, will they also like keep changing? And is the 12 Adityas the part of Nitya Suris?
One thing, there's nothing to say that it's our Sampradayam. It's there in Itihasas and Puranas. Clearly mentions the 33,000 crore Devatas. So the 33 major classifications that we talked about, right? Adityas, the Ekadasha Rudras, the Ashtavasus, they're all part of the creation. They are parcel, they are lower than Brahma themselves. So they are not Nityasuris. When the deluge happens, we say the Pralaya, right? When the Maha Pralaya happens, that's when they all do perish. There are 4 forms of pralayas, so they do not perish always, and that is one of the reasons when we go back and look at how the churning of the ocean happened, right? They wanted the continuity. They did not want replacements soon enough because don't know how things happen, right? there's an Aditya. That post has to be there. When we talk about time also, we got to keep in mind it's not the time that we and I, you and I can kind of actually conceptualize. These are in millions of years. Brahma has literally billions of years, truly speaking, in our times, in Earth times, right? He lives for billions of years, so we don't even have to think about what their lives are. Same with Aditya, same with Ekadasha Rudras. Their lifespans are millions and millions of years away from what we can imagine, and they are directing, they take avatarams themselves. They are in us, they are in you, they're in all of the elements in this world.
Padayan Swami.
So there's a question, how are the east and the west directions decided or positioned? How Japan is accepted as the first hour of the day without any dispute. Yeah, that's because we are for rotation. Of course, we don't consider Japan, or anything else in our calendar system, right? So there's no time zones. There's no concept of time zones. For us, our only calculation is the amount of time the Earth, with respect to the moon, our time is based on sidereal calendar, truly speaking. The Chandra being in one nakshatra to the next, right, is what we calculate. Of course, sunrise to sunrise is what we take up also, as the time. In addition to that, our time basically is, we look at the moon is in this nakshatra and goes to the next, where is it when the sunrise happens the next day morning, is what our time difference is. And there's another question which says, Uttarayanam, Dakshinanam determines. How are they determined? Yeah, so Uttarayanam and Dakshinayam, right? We have it on here. So if you look at it, right, we currently, if we are here, we are facing everything that the sun is showing up here is all Uttarayanam. So sun, whatever, all the rashis, that's Uttaram, right? Uttaram to the sun is Uttarayanam. So we are feeling what the sun is going to show us. He's going to, based on the Aditya that's here in terms of the Mesha Masam, is what we feel on the earth right down here. The position of the earth is right here. So when we are here, we are in Mesha Masam. So all these months that the Sauramana, right, the sun shows us, Uttaram to him, right? All these are Uttaram to him, is the way we consider. At the same time, when we go all the way down here, this is Dakshinayana. So Dakshina to what we are, right? All these months, the months starting from Karkata all the way down, Karkata, Simha, Kanya, Thula, Vrishchika, and Dhanush, they're all Dakshinayana.
அரியன் ராமானுஜதாசி அதே கொஸ்டின் நான் கேட்டிருந்தேன் உத்தராயணம் தட்சிணாயனம் பத்தி. அதுலயே இன்னொரு டவுட், அந்த உத்தராயணம் தட்சிணாயனம் ஸ்பிளிட் வந்து ஒவ்வொரு வாட்டியும் டிஃபர் ஆகுமா? லைக் தி நம்பர் ஆஃப் டேஸ் பொறுத்து டிஃபர் ஆகுமா, இல்ல அந்த நட்சத்திரத்தோட மூவ்மெண்ட்ல டிஃபர் ஆகுமா? ஏன்னா வருஷம் அதே நாள்ல உத்தராயணம் தட்சிணாயனம் ஆரம்பிக்கிறது இல்லையா ஒன்னும்?
Yeah, that is because of the way the sun moves. It's about the same. Dakshinayanam, if you look at Dakshinayanam, it is going to be around June 16th, June 17th, June 18th. June, yeah, it's going to be around June. Okay, so it's going to be right there. It's going to be when you enter Mithuna Masam, it's always going to be there. It's going to be Karkata Masam. So it's 1 or 2 days, just like the Pongal, right? Pongal, it's a Samvatsaram, right? No, it's a Pongal. So Uttarayanam, right? 13th of June, 13th of January, 14th of January, 15th, maximum 2 to 3 days. So this is where we go into Uttarayanam on the 14th. So there's not much of a variations when it comes to Uttarayanam, because the solar movement, right? The time difference that we take, the number of days that we take to move between these two rashis doesn't change as much with the Gregorian calendar.
Adiyan, thank you.
Yeah. So for us, actually, truly speaking, the Gregorian calendar may be different, right? We covered this yesterday also, but I'll tell you again. What happens is the summer months actually are slightly longer. I have this note down. Depending on Vakya Panchangam or Dirganita Panchangam, the number of months that we have vary. Like the vernal equinox, right? When we have Mesha Masam, is 30 days. Same thing with Tula. Tula Masam has 30 days because the time, the day and the night are the same. The month is also pretty equal. Whereas when we go, even though I have it as a circle here, right? It's elliptical a little bit, right? When we look at the actual movement, we are elliptical in a way that when we are in the summer months, the ellipse on the other side is longer. We are actually farther away from the sun. So even though we are farther away from the sun, the earth travels slower. Actually, when we are farther away from the suns, we travel slower and the months are slightly longer. So our months are 31 days in the summer months. Actually, these months are longer. They're like 31 days all the way up to right here. Simha Masa, until Simha Masam, there are 31 days. When we come down near the winter months, actually what happens is the curvature we take, the earth takes, is closer to the sun. So the closer to the sun we are in the curvature, right? It's curved like that. When that happens, because of the gravitational pull of the sun, which is so great, we travel faster. Our months are at 29. Actually, it comes down to 29, and hence we travel faster out of the whole orbit. Right. So there's another question which says, who are the Ashtavasus? 11 Rudras, like the moon that you mentioned. So they are the major classification of the Devatas that are appointed by Brahma to take care of the administration of the cosmos. The Adityas, like I said, right, the sun or Surya is one entity to be placed as a planet, right? But the energy aspect of it comes from the Adityas. So there are 12 Adityas. Each month we have one Aditya who controls everything. And likewise, Ashtavasus are the basic elements, light, water, fire. All of them are Ashtavasus. Agni is one of them. Chandasu is one of them. Rudras are what makes things move. They just create the storm. They are the stormy people. And so that's how they are classified. And from them, there are further declassifications in terms of the nakshatras. They're further downstream, which are smaller devatas. So, but everybody is to be respected. Everybody is got a place. If you look at just Udaka Shanti, that you go, you have every form of devata that you possibly can imagine is laid out there, for study further. Also, there's another question which says, the 108 count fixed for mantras doing japam. Yeah, that's a magic number that many of our itihasas and puranas say. Truly speaking, sahasram, right? 1008 is what it says. At the least, it is 108, but 1008 is what it is. We'll look up at some time as to exactly why we can come up with myriad of reasons why it's 108. It seems like a magic number, but yeah, I frankly don't have a good thing for why it is 108.
If you don't mind, can I give one small idea of maybe because of which that 108 has come?
Sure.
One is if you see the Earth to Sun, the diameter of the Sun is 108 times of the. So when you take the distance between the Earth to Moon, it is 108 times the diameter of the Moon. So the diameter of the Sun is 108 times the diameter of the Earth. So that may be the reason, because everything revolves around moon, earth, and sun. That may be one of the reason where this 108 is there.
True. Fine, but there's so many other places where when we do japam, right? It's always 108. So it's just not respect to the sun. For Gayatri, that may be the reason. That may be a good reason, but we don't know for the rest of it. Is my humble opinion.
Ramanuja Swami. Adian has 3 questions. I don't know if we all have time for it.
Sure. Can you please speak up?
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay. So the first question that I have is all of these stars, the 27 stars that we spoke of, as the Earth completes one entire revolution in a year, it moves in an elliptical orbit. Since it moves in an elliptical orbit, does it see all the stars in equidistant location?
Correct. We're equidistant, meaning, yeah, it is. See, the thing is, we may be going in an elliptical fashion, but when we relative position of all these things are so far away, so they're billions of light years away, that it didn't make. That's the reason why I didn't even bother putting it. It's easy to be representing this as a circle rather than an elliptical, because elliptical is such a small part in the whole cosmos that that little few million miles is going to make absolutely no difference to us at all. These things are way out there.
I see. So for us, we perceive all of these 27 stars equidistant from each other throughout. Is that right, Swami?
Exactly. It is all equidistant. There's no difference in this thing, and between them two, we just make a slice in the pie. We just have those padams, and we don't even it's how we perceive things. The moon moving, we don't make a distinction, even though they may be separated between themselves in millions of miles too. We don't make the distinction because it's not perceivable very easily to observer from here. So yeah, it's pretty much equidistant.
It's actually angular distance. It's not.
Correct.
So degrees. 30.
Swami, another. Adian has one more question, Swami. In Mannar Sampradayam and Thodappan Sampradayam, the way we celebrate Krishna Janmashtami is quite different, because one says that we have to have an Ashtami, the other Sampradayam says that we have to have Revati Nakshatra. Could you please shine some light on that, Swami?
Yeah. So I can try, but the fact is, Krishna was born on Ashtami and Rohini. So there are a lot of different opinions in terms of how they look at the conjoining of the different stars. So what happens there is, it's not as much as I wouldn't want to call it as a difference. The priti that each one has towards Krishna, what they have towards his birth, having born, taken the birth all for our sake, is so great that we tend to think about it as a difference. I personally would like to be very happy that there are as many celebrations of Krishna that there are, because each one feels that they need to feel so connected with Krishna that it's so important. Okay, I want to make that point very clear. There are one sampradayam that says he was born in Bhadrapada Masa, right? So that's why when you say the Bhadrapada Masa Ashtami, so that's just a Gokula Ashtami. So that's where people like ISKCON, Sampradayam, they celebrate a month earlier. This time it was not as bad because of the Adhika Masam, things moved quickly. Whereas for us, it's got to be Shravana Masam. We all agree on Shravana. When that happens, there's Rohini, but when the Rohini is there, they do not even want Kritika to be present during the daytime. When the Kritika is in the morning, they just don't want you to consider that day. So it's a personal preference. They wanted the Rohini to be so pure in getting Krishna to be born. They feel that Rohini should be present in the morning as well as in the evening. Ashtami should be there in the evening. There should not be any semblance to Navami coming up in the evening. So it's only because of these small variations where they want to make sure that the touching, as they call the Vedam, in Veda is also, it's the Sanskritam term is used in various connotations, but a Vedam meaning the touching of, say, Navami or Kritika, for when it happens in this whole, that's why you'll see some sampradayams, they don't even care about Navami as long as there's no Vedam. They are okay to celebrate the Krishna Jayanti in Mrigashiras Nakshatram on a Navami day, because it's free for them, and they feel like they can connect. So it's a matter of personal, in the sense that the connection that they feel towards Krishna, that various sampradayams do it. We completely have to respect the fact that there are as many, and feel really proud or happy that there are differences in terms of how they've determined when Krishna was born. But the most, most people would agree that in night, when Vrishabha Rashi, Vrishabha Lagna is present with Rohini and Ashtami, is when he was born. But even then, the Ashtami was supposed to have been the start of the Ashtami happened when Krishna was born, and that's the reason why Yamuna was in spate. So they associate the fact that the river was in spate because of the moon. Again, we said the moon has a lot of effect. He was born in Chandra Vamsham, right? That he was born in Chandra Vamsham. The moon in Ashtami had an impact on the waters being in spate. It was just a starting of Ashtami. So people wanted to feel that connection to the exact time that he was born and celebrate him during that time. And that's the reason why we have as many differences as we have.
Again, Swami, one more question. We said the time is cyclical, so it repeats, right? So does it mean then all of these events like Rama's birth or Krishna's birth, the Mahabharata and everything will repeat?
Good question. At least Adian has not heard about Mahabharata happening multiple times, but Ramayanam is absolutely will happen, has happened, and will always be cyclical. It's such an important itihasa. It's such an important thing in our shastras that that's the exact reason why it even has the name Ayanam, meaning it's going to come back and again. And there's also acharyas that do tell us that at one point Hanuman himself questioned when Rama was narrating a story in general. Hanuman said, "Hey, I was there. You're talking about a Ramayana, and I was there." And Rama is supposed to have said, "Well, you are not yet in that particular plot." Okay, because he was there in the Ramayana that we know, but there have been many more Ramayanas before, and there will be Ramayanas after also.
Again, Swami. So Valmiki again, all these characters will have it will happen again, and the Ramayana, that the story that we get is something that happened recently that we have got, but the Ramayana is not necessarily the same. This is what you're trying to say, right?
The plot or the storyline remains the same. The number
Okay.
of shlokas that we have is 24,000, and even that seems like a huge one for us. But there are slokas that people have said, our acharyas have said, that there are 80,000 long. There are 100 crore slokas in certain Ramayanas.
Oh.
Definitely, when you say there are all these people like Vyasa or all of these characters will repeat, and they have repeated. We have Manus that repeat. right? There are going to be 14 manus. We are in one manvantara, but there will be other manvantaras when the creations will be pretty similar, and they will repeat.
Adiyan Swami.
Again, if there are no more questions, and I do sincerely have to thank for giving us the opportunity to kind of be here. Again, I see Punimama there.
I just want to take I know it's a very long hours you spoke, almost like an hour and 40 minutes, but it was mesmerizing. Unfortunately, it's so difficult to grab the whole thing, what you said. Maybe we need to go through the YouTube, segment it, and then concentrate. Then maybe we will be able to grasp more of that. That's my opinion. But this presentation, on behalf of our SriVari Sri Balaji Temple, we do not thank you. We bless you all the time for this Kaingariam. And this is the beginning. As I said yesterday, we need to repeat this. Use our platform as many times as possible. We are 10,000 miles away from our place. One thing what we are missing, SrIrAm, in this country is, in India, at the age of 5, you go and listen to the Upanyasam. You sit there for 30 days and listen to the satsangam given by Acharyas about Tirupavai. But in this generation where we are living up there, that one piece is totally missing. But that's a very critical piece, whereby listening at satsangam without thinking about our everyday, day-to-day life for the last 1.5 hours, when we concentrate and learn something, that gives a positive energy, and that shows the direction at which you need to live. It's a fundamental thing. I really appreciate what you did for the last 2 days, and we actually appreciate that. And anybody have a question, they could always reach you out, or through us or through the temple, we will reach, and you could be able to answer everything. Okay. So thank you very much. Thank you. Jai Sriman Narayana. Thank you. முடிச்சலாமா?